One of the greatest secrets to success I learned from a salt salesman. He was my neighbor, and he'd gotten rich after being born. He was actually born in a shack in the South that didn't have running water. All right, so this is a guy who was born into extreme poverty, lied about his age to get into the Navy, I think he was 16, because he just needed some way out of his extreme poverty. But when I met him, he was living in a mansion, small mansion, but he was a rich guy, lived in my neighborhood. And I once asked him at a party what his path to success was. And he told me that he started out after the Navy, he became a salt salesman. He would sell salt to grocery stores. So he would go in and say, you should carry my brand of salt instead of the other one. And I laughed and I said, how in the world can you sell salt? It's just price. Salt is salt. Am I wrong? How could anybody say my salt is better than your salt? And I said, how in the world did you sell it? And he said, and he told me this story. He said, well, yeah, iodine and blah, blah, blah. But the point is, from the consumer's point of view, it's a pretty generic thing. So he told me this story. He said there was a local grocery store guy who, when he called upon him, the guy said that he learned that the guy was going to be reorganizing his store over the weekend. So the guy was going to have to come in and work all night or weekend or something, reorganizing his shelves for some purpose. So the salt salesman shows up unannounced to help. He just shows up and says, well, you were going to reorganize your shelves, so I'm going to show up and help. So he works with him, and when he was done, that store owner bought this guy's salt forever. All right, now, what is the lesson from this? The lesson is that people who receive things, if they're smart, they created that situation by giving something and asking nothing in return. So he gave something to somebody, and that was his system. He had a system, not a goal. His system was, I'm going to be nice to people, I'm going to help them, I'm not going to ask for anything. And when they decide who they want to buy salt from, I'm going to get my share. And he became the best salt salesman in his company. And that created a bunch of money because he got paid on commission. And then he parlayed that into a number of other businesses, became a famous entrepreneur. Here's the reason I bring this up. Somebody else is using this technique. Somebody who's watching this Periscope right now. You probably already know him. His name is Dr. Funk Juice. Dr. Funk Juice started tweeting about my Periscopes, the one you're watching right now. So I'm not sure how long ago, several weeks ago. And he made a little image of a coffee cup, and I guess it was a GIF, and announced that my Periscope comes up at the same time, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, and told people to watch it. Now, the first time I saw it, I thought, oh, great, a fan. He's such a fan, he made a GIF and is promoting my thing. And I don't know if I tweeted it or I liked it or whatever, but I enjoyed seeing it. Then the next day, he did it again. And again. And again. Now, I had been thinking to myself, I should do that myself. But it was just one extra thing, and I didn't feel like doing it. But it was convenient for me, because every time Dr. Funk Juice would do one of those tweets, it would come in at exactly the right time, like half an hour or so before the actual Periscope, perfect timing. And I would see it in my Twitter feed, because I'm always on Twitter right before I come on here. And I'd say, oh, I don't have to do a tweet. I'll just retweet Dr. Funk Juice. And day after day after day, a person I've never met, owes me nothing, gave me something. It was just a gift. Now, he apparently likes the content that comes out of this. Now, normally I don't like to mention ethnicity, but I think it matters in this case. So Dr. Funk Juice is based on his profile as an African-American man and as a DJ. And he has found the secret to success. Because who am I talking about right now? Dr. Funk Juice. And I'm going to tell you that you should follow him at DJ underscore DR underscore Funkjuice, one word, Funkjuice. And I got to say that if I were to bet on somebody, I would bet on this guy because he's figured out the salt salesman trick. He simply gave me something for free and got my attention, and then he gave me something else for free, got my attention, and now I'm giving him a commercial. So presumably he will gain some followers, get something out of it. But I don't think he had that specifically in mind. I'm guessing that he was running it like a system. I can't read his mind, but I'm guessing he didn't have a specific outcome in mind. He just knew what the salt salesman knew, that if I do this good thing and ask nothing in return, something good might happen. But I don't think he necessarily did it for that reason. I think he just understands the world at a deeper level. And the reason I mentioned ethnicity is this is the following point. I've often thought that one of the biggest forms of, I would call it almost, what's the word, industrial racism or sort of built-in racism, is that if you're born a typical white kid and you've got a successful white family, you're getting all this advice, even if you don't want it. Just being born in a family where you've got entrepreneurs and people who are, going to college and stuff, you're just going to sort of pick up advice. And that's got to be a tremendous advantage over somebody who has some different situation and they don't get the benefit of that, learning things by osmosis, just being around it. And I've often thought that there should be some kind of a class or a lesson. It doesn't have to be for, African Americans specifically, but as a group, they may have less access to people who've already made it, and that's part of the sort of intrinsic bias of our society, is that some people just don't have access to mentors. So Dr. Funkjuice, either by being smart, or possibly he had some good experiences with family members who were also successful, is onto this secret. Very, very powerful secret. Now, can he share it? I would imagine that if he has kids, I don't know if he has or he has them someday, they're going to have the benefit of his experience, and by osmosis, they'll learn what he did and maybe pick up some tricks. How could you expand that to, let's say, inner cities, people who really needed it? When I wrote my book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, I was thinking in those terms, but I don't think that book necessarily cracks every community. So anyway, big call out to Dr. Funkjuice for being so smart about success.